I am Stephen Kolb, and I am the CEO of the Council of Fashion Designers of America. The CFDA is a not-for-profit organization of 477 American designers, and our mission is to strengthen American fashion in the global economy. We develop programming that speaks to the needs of our members, who range from women's and menswear to jewelry and accessory designers. Sustainability is increasingly important to the American fashion community, and it's been a pillar of the CFDA for more than a decade. We take a multifaceted approach to sustainability. We look at it through an environmental, social, economic, and cultural lens. As NGO members of the UN Global Compact Initiative, we work to raise awareness of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and strive to align our initiative to these vital, universal guiding principles for fashion business, design, and all sectors. Last year, the CFDA launched the Open Access Education Centered Sustainability Resource Hub on CFDA.com. With this hub, our goal is to provide designers, CEOs, students, manufacturers, and more with centralized tools, information, and resources to help transform their businesses, deepen their knowledge, and take positive steps for the future. This summer, we added to these efforts and launched a focused study in partnership with Boston Consulting Group on the environmental impact of New York Fashion Week. Fashion Week is one component of the fashion ecosystem, and we recognize that the entire supply chain must be confronted. Fashion Week spotlights our industry, and the logistical transformation of it will inspire those who attend and watch online. We are very grateful to the United Nations Office for Partnerships and to Conscious Fashion Campaign for their advisement and contribution within the Sustainability by Design Rethinking New York Fashion Week Report Steering Committee. The initial purpose of this work was to answer the industry's heightened call to action and specifically address the environmental impact of New York Fashion Week and its local ecosystem through various dimensions, including carbon and waste impacts. From printed invites to plastic bottles and lighting equipment, we saw an urgent need for the project. And our goal was to create a comprehensive report and playbook for brands as a guideline to implement creative strategies and reduce both waste and the carbon footprint of fashion-related New York Fashion Week events and activities. Its findings and recommendations are intended not only to provide useful guidance to New York as a major global fashion capital, but to be shared and built upon globally. COVID-19 has led to an unprecedented economic challenge and uncertainty, and demands that we all radically rethink and reset every aspect of the fashion system. This past September, New York Fashion Week was entirely online at CFDA's innovative new digital platform, Runway 360, and Runway 360 will continue to support sustainable change for seasons to come. This moment is complex and requires us to be resilient and innovative and continue in our direct efforts to address the urgent climate change and pollution-related impacts of our industry. When we work together, the future of fashion can be sustainable. Today, I'm very pleased to be introducing Gabrielle Hearst, Tracy Reese, Maria Conejo, Hilary Taymor from Colina Estrada, Sarah Willisdorf from the Boston Consulting Group. This conversation around New York Fashion Week's future is being moderated by Lucy Brigham of the United Nations Office for Partnerships. First, though, it's a pleasure to introduce Nicholas Linas of BCG, who will walk you through the Sustainability by Design Rethinking New York Fashion Week Impact Report and Playbook for Positive Change. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, I'm Nicholas Linas, Project Director at BCG's New York office. I'm part of the working team in Sustainability by Design Rethinking New York Fashion Week. Today, I'll be taking you through some of the highlights of our report in collaboration with the CFDA and the UN Office for Partnerships. Our study, A New York Fashion Week Sustainability Strategy, has been inspired in part by the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the UN of which you see 7 in the screen right now, not just with regard to their encouragement of responsible consumption and their determination to take action on climate change, but also in their commitment to promote job growth and make cities more sustainable. Sustainability is increasingly an important topic for New York Fashion Week stakeholders, with many seeing opportunities to improve the sustainability of their operations. Many are already setting goals, mostly in the areas of materials and waste. However, they only see them as consideration due to other decision drivers taking precedence, such as the creative implications or imperatives of the show design. To better understand the sustainability of New York Fashion Week, we looked at 4 dimensions, from the consumption of energy to the generation of waste and use of materials across 6 impact areas, such as the production of sets and events, the samples purchased for shows and showrooms, and the transportation of guests, production crew, and models. We evaluated the different sustainable choices that can be made in each of these fields. Our assessment of New York Fashion Week confirms stakeholders have made progress towards sustainability, but opportunities remain. Stakeholders have particularly focused their efforts on show production and samples. And while similar efforts have been taken in relation to venue, content, and PR, there is an opportunity for stakeholders to focus on becoming more energy efficient during New York Fashion Week. In particular, the areas with the greatest room for improvement are venue and transportation and logistics. We estimate that each Fashion Week generates about 40 to 48,000 metric tons of CO2, with the majority coming from participants' air travel. Going forward, the majority of stakeholders expect to increase their efforts and resource allocation to drive sustainability. However, they point to constrained timelines, budgetary restrictions, and lack of knowledge as main obstacles, preventing them to be more sustainable during New York Fashion Week. To enable stakeholders to address the impact on the environment, we've recommended a 3-step approach. It begins by determining which metrics to measure and track and evaluate how different activities affect them. Then actors should identify ways to reduce the impact as much as possible and commit to a reduction target. For any impact that cannot be avoided, actors are encouraged to compensate the impact through partnerships or initiatives. We've identified close to 50 practices that will move New York Fashion Week towards sustainability, from alternative events to other formats to partnering with sustainable transportation companies and hotels with selected CFDA support. These are collected in a playbook available to your New York Fashion Week community. New York Fashion Week generates immense attention in the media, in the fashion industry as a whole, and amongst its enormous consumer base. As such, it can serve as a valuable symbol of the industry's effort to become more sustainable and hopefully a beginning towards more sustainable fashion. Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone for joining the Discover the Sustainable Development Goals to Power the Decade of Action event. We are really glad you found time to join us. And I would like to welcome you to the roundtable discussion. In our conversation, we will focus on the recently launched report, Sustainability by Design, Rethinking the New York Fashion Week. The report was launched in October, and it is a product of collaboration between the Council of Fashion Designers of America and the Boston Consulting Group. And the report benefited from input from the Steering Research Committee that included some of the leading experts from the industry that have a strong background in sustainability and responsible practices. And we are honored and privileged to have some of the committee members with us today. My name is Lucia Brigham, and I'm a Chief of Office of the United Nations Office for Partnerships. In our office, our primary objective is to be the gateway to United Nations for private company, for nonprofits, for industry organizations such as CFDA, with the overall objective to co-create partnerships and collaborations to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. We work with the extensive network of stakeholders to engage and educate global audiences about the goals, what they mean, what they represent for them, and about the collaborative opportunities that exist. The goals have been, or as we call them, the SDGs. They were designed to serve as a blueprint for a more prosperous and peaceful planet for all. What they represent is the most pressing challenges that we face today under 17 goals. And they were designed by the member states of the United Nations under the premise that we have to collaborate only by working together, by pooling and leveraging our collective expertise, knowledge, networks, we can succeed and deliver on these goals. The goals have a deadline that 2030 is the year when we have committed to make them happen. And I'm very honored to have such a pool of representatives from the industry that have been leading on sustainable and responsible practices and showcase that the industry has a role to play vis-a-vis the goals. And I would like to say that the fashion industry is an important and powerful ally for the United Nations in the decade of action to deliver the goals. And the report that we are discussing today, the Sustainability by Design, it is a great example of the impact the industry has on the goals. Looking closely or having a close look at the New York Fashion Week is an important step in the right direction. And before I give you a floor and start the conversation, I would like to recognize and thank the CFDA, our colleagues at the Council of Fashion Designers of America, for their deep commitment to sustainability and for driving the change within the industry. We have an impressive panel of women, and I would like to ask all of you to please introduce yourself, what you do, and what is your link to the report that we are discussing today. Maybe I can start with Sarah.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Sarah Willisdorf. I'm a managing director and partner at the Boston Consulting Group in New York City. I'm our global lead for luxury, but exclusively work in fashion and luxury. And we were really delighted to be able to partner with the CFDA on this report. Our team was responsible for a lot of the analysis and co-authoring, and really excited to be on this panel of women today. And just a note on the passion, just to, I think, reiterate that point, you know, we started this work pre-COVID, and when COVID hit in March and April, this group, many of the panel on the phone today, were still taking the time to get on steering committee calls, despite having to deal with everything else with their businesses and their families. And so I just really excited there's so much passion and movement in this topic.
Thank you, Sarah. And I have to say that one of the first calls of the steering committee was probably in the most dramatic times of my life. As I remember, it was in the second week of March. So, you know, it is a very unprecedented timing, and I would like to drill a little bit into that during our conversation. Perhaps as the next one I see here, Hilary.
Hi guys, thanks so much for having me. I'm Hilary Taymor, the creative director of Kalina Strada. And I was just asked by the CFDA to join this panel to kind of give insight. My whole brand is based on sustainability, based in New York City. And we've been working and trying to make the most sustainable fashion weeks for the past couple years as much as possible. So it was really an honor to be a part, to be able to have our say in what, you know, how to give back to New York Fashion Week and also how to make it more sustainable.
Thank you. Maria?
Hi, my name is Maria Conejo. I'm founder and creative director of Zero Maria Conejo. Sustainability is something that is very close to my heart as I have children, and it's been foremost in my mind since I had them 29 years ago. And it's a constant process every day. I think we all could do with sharing information, and I'm really happy to be on this panel and be able to sort of move things along. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I have to recognize, I have to give a shout out to your decor in the wall. For those who are not familiar yet, the colorful grid behind Maria on the right-hand side, they represent the goals. And I have to fully endorse the statement just made. We do this. We are driven by the fact that we are all human, and we have, and in my case, we have children. And that's the biggest motivation we have. All right, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Reese. I'm the founder and creative director of Hope for Flowers. I also am the vice chairman of the board of directors at CFDA, and I sit on the Black Advisory Board there. And I was part of the steering committee, and I was so happy to be included. I think that there's such a unique opportunity for New York Fashion Week to pivot to be more sustainable and hopefully to be a leader in, a sustainable fashion week for the world. And it's a critical time for New York Fashion Week. And I think we have to really look at our strengths and where we can have a positive impact in the world. And this is an incredible opportunity for us.
Thank you, Tracy. And now to Gabriella, please.
Hi, I'm the founder and creative director of Gabrielle Hearst, which was born out of the commitment to create the highest quality product with the lowest impact to the environment. During these past 5 years, we've launched different environmental practices, and some of them have become standard practices. For example, we did the first carbon neutral show in New York Fashion Week worldwide, and that's now a standard practice for other shows in the world. So we're committed to the quest of finding a way to do business that it's more imbalanced with nature and move us towards a circular economy. And I was also asked to be in the steering committee, which is an honor, and give whatever information we have collected from our own experience.
Thank you, Gabriella. And I have to say that attending your show, fashion show in February this year was probably was very inspiring. And it was also one of the last public events I have attended this year. So it's a special meaning for me. And perhaps we can start with you. Since the launch of the report, what has been the reaction among your network, your employees, your collaborators, your supply chain? How did it land? How did it resonate with your friends and colleagues?
Well, for us, that we're a team, we're a small team, but very committed to finding the way of how we can move forward, right? And we work in a mission of 10 years from now, parallel to the sustainable development goals of the UN. And this report is so important because fashion, we don't have organizations that regulate us like the organic food industry will have. And so we are all self-regulated. So I find this report very important because it could become a blueprint to have an expanded vision of what that self-regulation can be. So I think to put these parameters in practice it's what's needed.
So Sarah, thank you, Gabriella. And now to Sarah, I would like to, we have touched upon a little bit about the timing of the report, and it was initiated just before the pandemic and created and kind of reshaped during the pandemic, launched in October. Why do you think the report is important now at this time? What is the relevance?
Yeah, it was interesting timing. As you mentioned, we did start this report pre-pandemic, and just to baseline, sustainability has obviously been a growing trend for a number of years, but what I would say is it was often a consumer-driven trend, and there were obviously some brands, and you have many of the creative directors and founders here on this panel that built their businesses around those objectives. But for the most part of the last decade, it has been consumer-driven. What you've seen even pre-COVID in the last couple of years was an acceleration by companies, by governments, and other organizations, which I think was positive. When we were literally about to launch, I think, the report when COVID really hit, and what we decided to sort of all pause and understand some of the impacts of COVID. And I think it's obviously been a tremendously tumultuous year, but if there is a silver lining, what we've seen in our consumer data is that, if anything, consumers have become more passionate about things like sustainability. And it's almost, COVID was almost the first time when everyone realized their individual actions had societal consequences. And so we're actually hoping that, as a positive, we see even a greater acceleration towards sustainability. I think the other thing I'd quickly say on that is, we also recognize this is one small element of the fashion industry's contribution to everything in the world. But we also acknowledge that it's a bit of a bellwether and a symbol, and given just the reach for fashion weeks in general. So, what we did see over the last, 6 months was, many brands experimenting with different formats and different ways of doing things, many of which did have positive impact from a sustainability perspective, which is great. So I think, honestly, the main impact of COVID is we've just actually seen some of the playbook suggestions go into practice early. And I think what will be really important is to see how they endure as we move into some, new normality or new reality, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I see the report. Of course, I recognize the vastness of the fashion industry and the potential it has to really help the international community and the UN to advance the goals. And clearly, the New York Fashion Week, as iconic as it is, it's just one of many elements, right? One out of the specks out of this beautiful tapestry that we need to collectively work on. But it's a stepping stone. I think it can be catalytic stone that shows what is possible and how to do it properly. Maria, can I please turn to you and ask you? You clearly are fluent in the goals, and I would like to ask you: do you think, what is the knowledge? Like, what is the interest among from your perspective in the industry about the goals, about the sustainable development goals, or more generally about sustainable practices? Why do people think it is relevant? Is it changing? Has it evolved in the past couple of years? Are we reaching some kind of point of change?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the awareness because of the pandemic is all how do you say, magnified the cause and effect of our waste and pollution, and the fact that a lot of COVID was related to the highly populated areas that are very heavy on CO2 emissions. So keeping things local and making people aware of the cause and effect of our actions, I think, is fundamental right now. And I think in a very simple way, because I think a lot of people get bogged down with science, and people need like a little bullet. I love this little bullet point, by the way. I think the only one that isn't there is mental health, because I feel like right now that's one of the things that is really key for a lot of people. There's a lot of trauma going on, and people need to look after each other, and they need to see the cause and effect of what they're doing, and how even, because when it gets too scientific, people just go, well, I can't do that. But when they see that they can make a little bit of effect every single day of their lives, just a little bit, less plastic, just small steps that contribute to a bigger scale thing. And I think people are really aware of that. And more than anything, especially the younger generation. I mean, for me, it's something very close to my heart, like I said, because of my children. What are we leaving them behind? And, kids now are shopping less, more, they're much more interested in where things came from. They're shopping also vintage or upcycle, or they want to know where the clothes are made. And I think everything is about information right now, and sharing that information, but also not alienating people, by making it too scientific, making it more human. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have, you know, as an industry. The fashion industry is quite alienating. And I think when you make things more real, the fact that people are relating to real people right now, not supermodels, is a big point. You know, I think it's something about communication and community right now and sharing that information. And our clients are really responding to it.
Thank you. To keep it authentic, I like a couple of, to highlight the points you have made. It's important to be authentic and using the sustainability pillars, or we call it, from the end perspective, we call it the Sustainable Development Goals, as a platform for engagement and communication to really create what we are doing here. We are trying to create a movement. We are creating a collective action on something that makes sense and has value to all, right? To us, yes, to future generations, to our customers.
But I think valuing, like these sweaters we make in Bolivia, and I get every single knit to sign the piece, because to me, that's a new idea of luxury, that we're sustaining a community of women knitters, women who are using this money to help their children, to bring up their communities. I think it's about communication. And I think as the idea of luxury right now is things that have been touched by hand. Are things that are not, it's not about lots of it. It's more about the quality, not the quantity right now. And I think that's one of the things, like Gabriella emphasizes, that, it's about luxury, and, it has to be looked up to be small. Not every business has to be mega. And sustainability is also about, keeping things in the correct way for your environment and your community.
Well, you call it luxury. I call it conscious decision. Yeah. How do we want to live?
I call it conscientious luxury.
Okay,
luxury,
perfect.
Luxury with a conscience.
We have a consensus here. Excellent. Yes. And on that, I think I would like to link Tracy here. I think that resonates pretty well with what you are doing. When I look at what you do, you have really, there's a strong message of community ties, of empowerment of women, of engaging, of working in an ecosystem, of partnership ecosystem, right? It's not just about the fashion, but about creating a lifestyle that has got impact, the impact we want, that drives the impact we want. And I would like, can you please tell us how does your vision for Hope for Flowers fit in within the report, and how do you see it influencing each other, and what are the next steps for you?
Right. When I decided to launch Hope for Flowers and stepped away from my old business, Tracy Reese, I did it because I knew I needed to go forward in a more responsible way, and I had to really dig deep and remember why I'm in this industry and why I love what I do. And I realized I'd gotten away from a lot of that as my former business expanded. You become much more of a manager, and you're just a slave to product development. And the idea of, what Maria said, every business isn't meant to be a mega business. And it's almost a gift to myself, really, to be able at this point in my career to say, I want to have a very specific business that doesn't have to be incredibly large. It has to grow large enough to pay everyone who works with us their value, for us all to be comfortable, and for us to be able to serve our community. But it doesn't have to be a mega brand. I don't want it to be a mega business, because then so many things are compromised. I decided to base my business here in Detroit because I knew that there was a huge community here that could benefit from what I'm doing, and that we could also have an impact with children, and also an impact talking to people, everyday people, about more sustainable lifestyles and choices. Yeah. And education is a big part of that, and having access to education And, you know, one of the challenges for me in learning how to work more responsibly was how intellectual and, you know, it's just very scientific, a lot of what we're learning, and it's off-putting for some people. And I think being able to zero in on what's important to me as a designer and business owner, and be able to address that in a simple grassroots kind of way, as opposed to trying to conquer the world and solve every single problem, is incredibly important. And it's my mission here in Detroit, you know, to be able to educate my community, to talk to young people about it. You know, we have to talk to the future, you know, and I think that especially kids in urban settings who don't have access to, you know, all of this science and intellect, and who are living, you know, sometimes on the poverty line or below. They don't know what luxury is outside of, you know, what they can't afford to have. I think explaining to them what it really means, where clothing comes from, who are the people behind the pieces that they're craving or the pieces that they're throwing away, and what that means to other communities. I think it's incredibly important when people have this knowledge and they can make informed decisions. They're incredibly empowered. And I want to be a part of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted to say, listening to you, I think what jumps out is sustainable fashion as a platform for empowerment, right? You give an opportunity for people to, you educate them, engage them, empower them to make the right decisions. And you are absolutely right. It's not just about the mega global companies and brands, but about driving the change from the roots up. And that everybody has a role to play. And on that, I would like to go to Hilary. Hilary, I think Maria or perhaps Sarah mentioned that we need to find a creative, innovative way of engaging, right? Driving the change, transforming the industry in a fun, creative way. I think that if we want hip, cool, and fun sustainability, we should definitely look to you. So how do you think your perspective, your vision for your company can resonate or can interweave with the sustainable development goals, and how should we communicate and engage better in a fun way to the audiences?
So we just launched something with Gucci Fest where we made a whole digital video game, and you can actually play the video game afterwards. So just like thinking outside the box of how you can interact with the clothing designs. And I've been thinking a lot about, like, in 10 years, are we even going to be able to make new collections, and how do we, you know, foresee that future? Are we going to be able to make anything again? So thinking of ways that fashion designers can still engage with their fans, engage with their customers, and maybe profit from something that's maybe not an actual object, and just thinking outside the box on that platform and engaging and still creating content and making it fun for everyone. And just like getting with the times. I think this fashion week was really exciting about doing, like, we did a mini series film that was 14 minutes that replicated a fashion show, but was a very digital experience as well for spring. And I think it's important to just, you know, think outside the box of how do we, this is a very COVID time situation, but if we go into working in fashion weeks and real shows again, how do we do it? How do we make sure it's sustainable? How do we engage with our customers and think on a different level about what the norms of fashion is? Because it doesn't have to be what it has been. And we can still create fun content. We can still create beautiful clothes that are conscious and made correctly, or made out of vintage t-shirts from the trash in Ghana. And we can still create clothing on a, just like on a nicer level, and create it consciously and in a luxury way. You know, I think it's really important to engage with the younger consumers in that way and still make it fun.
Okay. Changing the paradigm. I think that's where we are right now. And Gabriella, can you tell us? Can you share how you engage with the consumers? Right, it's a shifting landscape, and you have had this consistent message. You have built your brand around sustainable and responsible practices, and about awareness. But how do you engage and expand it? How do you keep it fresh and relevant?
Well, I'm a big believer that you have to bring people with desire to your messaging. And I'm a big believer of product, that no matter how good all our intentions are, if those products don't reflect our values, but also don't reflect beauty and desirability, it's the primary thing of why we are designers. So the way I've engaged with customers has been the same way. It's by creating product that it's made to last, that we've done the homework on, and we actually applied technology this year that we launched that's called Garment Journey, that brings transparency to the process of making our product, so customers can actually see how we make the product and by who is made. We've been doing before in my previous business too with Candela, we've been working with non-for-profits that empower women. The one I've worked most with Manos de Uruguay. And going back to the point that Maria had brought, and where you're marrying these subjects, we think that, for example, empowering women and sustainability will be something that it wouldn't be sitting hand by hand, but they are. Because when you empower women, you empower a whole community, you empower them to have education, and that has significant and accountable results to the environment. And so we put all our missions and we act of them, but we're still attracting our customers by the beauty of our works. But I've been observing, and I would say in the past 2 years, that more and more clients are aware and asking questions and we get more questions from clients asking how we source this material, where is this coming from? So there's a bigger engagement. Anecdotally, I'll have clients come to the store and they don't take a shopping bag because they know the ethos of our brand. So they rather to have less wastefulness than taking the fancy packaging. It's all about, for us, still finding a simple way, a humble way. We don't do windows displays, we don't do mannequins, a very clean way to display our product that has to have character and integrity and beauty. So I would say that we communicate with our product.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the issue of transparency and authenticity, right? Engaging, that's very key and crucial, I think, for everyone I see on the screen. So when I look at these 5 women, I see advocates of sustainable development goals within the fashion industry. And if I can go to you and say, give me one word that or one sentence, one area you would like to advance within the next year, what would it be? Sarah?
Yeah, so one word is tricky, but I actually think the collaboration and best practice sharing of the industry is going to be the most important thing. And I know more than one sentence, but when I hear the stories of women on this panel, they're all very aware. They've built their businesses around this, and it's amazing. When we interview brands in the US, 13% don't see the need to have objectives or targets, and 25% want to have them and they know it's important, but they don't know how to set them. So I actually think one of the ways to move the industry forward is actually in sort of, we've mentioned it before, but in education and collaboration and partnerships, because it's actually very hard to do this just alone, is my experience.
Certainly.
So not one word.
Yeah, no, I like it. Concise, concise and full of great ideas and messages. Maria, maybe if the same question to you. How do we snowball? How do we leverage this collective knowledge, commitment, and power there is on this panel and really turn it into a movement? Help in the combination with the report to catalyze action. Like, what do we need to do? A couple of sentences.
I just think,
I'm expanding it.
I mean, it's hard to do it in one word, sorry. But I would say, to me, what's really important is that we transmit the message that it is possible to get creative with less and to be local wherever possible. Just small guidelines that are not overwhelming with science, because I think, and that it also makes sense for the bottom line for smaller companies to be creative with less, to upcycle their fabrics and to communicate that. I think the problem is that once it becomes too intellectual, people just walk away. It needs to be, like I keep saying, it needs to be like little incremental things that every company says, you know, and they're not shamed into doing it, but it makes sense for them to do it. You know, I always say that to students, you know, how can you do this with one fabric instead of 5? How can you make this more interesting? You know, I think it's something that really the creative community could benefit from and not be alienating, because I think the problem is that it becomes so alienating when you have to, nobody has the time to read big reports. So I think just implementing little guidelines like get creative with less, shop local, do local stuff wherever possible, support your community. I just think it's things that people can have a direct effect on that are not overwhelming, because not everybody can afford to do a report on the CO2 emissions. But I know for a fact that we didn't do a show in February, so we didn't do any of that. And we only we didn't do shoes. We only had one pair of shoes per model, for a model for photographs. So then that we saved on that shipping from Italy, and you know, little things like that makes sense. And I just think that's one of the biggest things we can do, is encourage people to just do whatever they can.
So setting a precedent, lead by example, keep it simple, easy, engaging. Okay, Hilary, what do you think? How can we take the findings of the report and the positive step that we have taken collectively with that? How can we take it to the next level? How can we transform, use it to really have impact?
Okay, you can have one word, it's education.
Yes, love it. Good. Okay, education, absolutely. I think that having education both internally within your network, within your supply chain, and you know, your collaborators, and to consumers. I think that's, and you know, it leads to the question of empowerment that we have spoken with Maria and Tracy on. So Tracy, any word or sentence or sentences on the topic?
I have to agree with Sarah in terms of collaboration. And, you know, our industry is extremely siloed, and the sharing of information and resources is absolutely necessary for us to be able to succeed in having a real impact. And it's not just reports and all that. It's, you know, I've been talking to many people and nothing has come of it, but it's even textiles, you know, to have a sustainable textile bank that small brands can access, you know, and share these resources without having to commit to huge minimums. You know, I mean, right now, that door to entry is barely cracked open. It's extremely challenging to work in a truly sustainable way, because we're not collaborating, we're not sharing information, we're not sharing resources in any broad way. You know, I think there are small silos that wish to do this, but you know, our industry has this long-standing habit of everything being proprietary, and I think that we have to drop that way of thinking so that there's an opportunity for all brands to, you know, start to work more responsibly and share information, because it's just like this country, you know, all of the hurdles that we're going to have to get over to survive as a democracy. We're not going to do it, you know, with these huge divisions. And it's the same with our industry. It has to be a group effort and a concerted effort. And we have to all open our doors and our minds and our hearts to sort of get this done together.
Yeah, there's undeniable power of partnerships, and what we can achieve collectively, right? And maybe let's go to Sarah. Sarah, how do you think the report, like what is your vision for the report? How can it be leveraged outside the New York Fashion Week? What are the next steps?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I agree a little with Maria that not everyone wants or has the time to read a huge report. So at its minimum, we're hoping, and at least we're seeing traction around the playbook elements. So some of the tips and tricks being shared, being leveraged more broadly. But really, I mean, I think as you and I have discussed before, we see this as a first step in the industry really trying to forge together with the help of organizations like yours and the CFDA to sort of try and move forward as an industry. And actually, you know, we were trying to focus on New York Fashion Week while we were writing this report, but I think with the steering group, many great ideas came up. I mean, the textile bank, Tracy, I think everyone was there was a lot of passion and energy around that. And so I think it's the prioritization of the next set of ideas to move forward. And one thing that's going to be not even US only, but a global piece is it's very tough for consumers to shop sustainably now. I mean, obviously they can shop the brands they know are sustainable, but to Gabriella's point, there's no USDA organic or, you know, FDA approved or any of these things. So I do think as an industry, we are going to have to think through what is the certification that ultimately will make it easier for consumers to even know where are they being greenwashed versus not. So kind of a long-winded answer, but we hope in the immediate term, people take the playbook and use it. And longer term, we hope this is the first step towards the next, you know, series of initiatives.
Yep, absolutely. I think that we have all perceived the report as not one-off, but as one step, and hopefully it's a journey, right, that we are walking on together. We have a few more minutes to wrap this this fascinating conversation up. And I would like to go around our table, the virtual table, to ask what, okay, I'm looking at Sarah now. What is it, what is it that you have on the 2021 for the next year calendar that excites you most, that you would like to share with us?
So, I mean, I think we have a lot of things that excite us for next year. But what I would say more broadly, when we think about our industry, this, you know, 2020 has certainly been tough, and 2021, for the most part, is going to continue to have challenges. Just if we think about, you know, some of the trends we're seeing, you know, less travel, especially when you're thinking about the shopping of tourists and different things. What I would say, though, the things that excite me are some that have been mentioned on the phone. I think a greater focus on sustainability, a greater focus on purpose. We've seen a tremendous increase in the localization of product and shopping and brands close to home. And we're also seeing localization of manufacturing as supply chains have needed to become more flexible given some of the events. So I think if I think about some of the, you know, silver linings that came out of a very difficult experience, I think the way companies are implementing them and scaling them, and hopefully they're going to be structural changes moving forward. They're some of the things that we're really excited about and excited to work on.
Okay, thank you. Then, Gabriella and Maria, what is your message? What would you say to these young, aspiring designers and students that are thinking of, you know, their future careers? They are, you know, they are at school, design schools, in this very scary time, and who knows what the future holds. They are like shifting plates, tectonic plates within the fashion industry. What is the message? What is your message to them?
I mean, my message would be to be original, to have your own point of views, and start from a simple idea. And with right now, with materials being less and less available, to start with things that are already available and upcycling. I don't know. I think it's a time that kids can get really creative in customization. And the idea of patchworking things together from materials that are usually seen as waste, like Hilary said, is great. And also that not everything has to be brand new anymore. There's a beauty in things that have had a life already that can be upcycled. And there's a beauty in the hand and things that are not everywhere, that are unique.
Thank you. Gabriella, what do you think?
I would tell them to think circular and that small is the new big.
Okay, excellent. Hilary and Tracy, if you can think big, you know, sky's the limit. What is that one phenomenal thing you would like to accomplish next year? Hilary, I will start with you.
That's not fair. I just want to be able to make everything 100% sustainable and be able to think all the thoughts in my brain to be able to accomplish those on a sustainable level, which is like very much when I make a collection, it's about 20% of what I want based on what is available to us technology wise. So just to be able to work with some of the greatest technology that's available to us on a sustainable level.
Thank you. Tracy, please.
I'd like to be able to, I mean, my goal is really to move a good percentage of my production here to Detroit. So to make locally, you know, and employ local people in every aspect of my business and operation. So it's a challenge, you know, we're working hard here in Detroit to be able to produce apparel, and we've made some great inroads. So looking forward to really manifesting some actual success in that goal in 2021.
Okay, so to make it fair, and everybody should be allowed to dream, Gabriella, what would be your one imaginary super success story if you could choose one thing that you would love to do? Yeah.
I mean, our main goal now, which is by end of 2021 to 2022, is to be using at least 80% of our materials be recycled and repurposed. That's a goal, and then to be able to ship as much as the majority of our production by boat.
Okay.
So those are my, I don't know how fancy they are, but they're my goals.
From my perspective, they look beautiful. Okay, Maria.
First and foremost, our goal next year is to be sustainable, to stay in business. I mean, we've all seen our business disappear.
Yeah.
And it's been drastic changes. And one of the things, I'm also on the BOF panel and the board of the CFDA, and one of the things that we've really coming to terms with is like to ask designers to produce less collections, but make them count, and do less shipping.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And the last message, I would like to recognize all of you. Thank you for your time, for your commitment, for your innovation, for your passion for sustainability, and being such a good ally and friend of the United Nations and the goals.